The desolate landscape of Kairos 9, a barren planet at the far edge of the galaxy, was the perfect arena for what was about to unfold. Its dusty surface, dotted with jagged rocks and craters, had long been abandoned by most galactic civilizations. But today, it would play host to the greatest spectacle in the universe, one that would capture the attention of billions of alien species. On Kairos 9, money wasn't just currency, it was power. It was the driving force of civilization, the reason wars were waged, and the motivation for every single decision made. For the inhabitants of the planet, money wasn't merely something to be earned. It was a measure of one's worth, a symbol of status and survival. And for the next 48 hours, the entire planet would be the backdrop to a brutal fight for the ultimate prize, dollar money, a new form of galactic currency, coveted by nearly every species in the galaxy. The event had begun with a call to arms that reverberated across the stars. It was called the Arena of Wealth, an event so notorious that even the most powerful of species couldn't ignore it. The rules were simple: 2,000 participants, each from different worlds and backgrounds, would battle for control of the newly minted dollar money. The victor would have enough wealth to reshape their entire species, to control entire sectors of space, to become the most powerful being in the galaxy. But there could be only one winner. As the countdown began, the sky above Kairos 9 shimmered with the arrival of countless ships. Massive freighters, sleek star cruisers, and dangerous battle pods descended upon the surface, each carrying participants eager to stake their claim in the upcoming fight. Their faces were masked behind helmets or obscured by their alien features, but one thing was clear: they were all hungry for the prize. For some, it was a chance to escape poverty. For others, it was a way to cement their place in galactic history. For a few, it was an opportunity to wipe out their enemies and conquer the galaxy itself. In the middle of the battlefield, a gigantic, circular arena stood, surrounded by towering walls of energy that would prevent any participant from escaping. A thick force field hovered above, shielding the combatants from the intense heat of Kairos 9's twin suns. The atmosphere inside the arena was dense with tension and excitement. The grand prize, dollar money, was suspended high above the center of the arena, a shimmering orb, pulsing with energy, hanging in the air like a beacon to all who would compete for it. As the participants began to assemble, there were murmurs in the crowd, whispers of strategies, alliances, and betrayals. Among the 2,000 fighters were beings of unimaginable power, cybernetic beings, genetically enhanced monsters, and the smartest tacticians from across the galaxy. But there were also the underdogs, the desperate, the impoverished, and the rejected races who saw this as their one shot at greatness. Among them was Eris, a young female Zalornian who had been raised in the slums of a forgotten colony. Zalornians were a species known for their agility, strength, and keen instincts, but they were also the lowest caste in the galaxy. Eris had been training for this moment her entire life. Unlike the others, who had resources, power, and connections, Eris had nothing but her will to fight, her raw determination, and a desire to escape the shackles of her existence. She had never experienced a taste of wealth, and dollar money was the only way she could break free from the oppressive system that had held her people back for centuries. She stood in the shadows, eyes narrowing as she surveyed the competition. Some of the contestants were armed with advanced weapons, others relied on pure physical strength, and still others had tech that made them nearly invincible. But Eris wasn't intimidated. She had something the others didn't: heart. She had lived through hardship, fought through adversity, and survived when she should have died. This fight wasn't just about wealth for her, it was about survival, freedom, and changing her fate forever. The announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeakers, reverberating throughout the arena. "Welcome to the Arena of Wealth," the voice declared. "You are here to fight for the greatest prize in the galaxy, dollar money. Only one of you will walk away with it, and the rest will be forgotten. Fight with honor. Fight with power. Fight for your future." The countdown clock flickered, marking the start of the battle. Participants scattered, each one rushing to claim their piece of the arena. Some charged forward, weapons drawn, while others took cover, watching for opportunities to strike. Eris didn't waste any time. She darted forward, her lithe body weaving through the chaos. She knew she couldn't match the others in raw power or firepower, but her speed and cunning could make all the difference. She needed to bide her time, pick her moments, and wait for the right opportunity to strike. The battle for dollar money had begun. The battle for dollar money was chaos incarnate. The moment the countdown ended, the arena erupted into an inferno of motion, sound, and violence. Fighters from across the galaxy clashed in every corner, and the air was filled with the roar of weapons, the cries of pain, and the thrum of energy shields. Eris moved like a shadow, slipping through the chaos without drawing attention to herself. She had spent years surviving on the streets of her homeworld, learning to read people, to anticipate their movements. This wasn't her first fight. It wasn't even her first fight for survival. But this was different. The stakes were higher. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about changing her life forever. The first few minutes of the fight were a blur. She watched in awe and fear as some of the other contestants took down their opponents with overwhelming force. A massive, towering brute from the Vrathian species crushed his opponent with one punch, his massive fists sending the unfortunate soul flying through the air like a ragdoll. Others were armed with laser rifles, mowing down anything that moved with cold precision. But Eris knew that brute strength and firepower weren't her advantage. She wasn't here to fight them head-on. She was here to outsmart them. A few moments into the chaos, she spotted a small group of fighters clashing in the distance, 3 alien creatures locked in battle. One was a Ithronian, a species known for their advanced neural linking technology, their minds connected to powerful combat drones. Another was a Tarkin, a cybernetic being with a nearly impenetrable exoskeleton. The third, a humanoid with 4 arms and piercing red eyes, was clearly a mercenary with a vast arsenal of weaponry. As they fought, Eris observed, calculating their moves, learning. The Ithronian was fast, but its reliance on drones made it vulnerable to sudden, close-range attacks. The Tarkin was nearly invincible, but its bulky form made it slow and predictable. The mercenary, however, was fast and deadly, relying on speed and precision with his weaponry. Eris knew the mercenary was the most dangerous, he wouldn't hesitate, and he wouldn't miss. Her instincts told her to keep moving, to stay low and out of sight, but the sight of the mercenary's weapon made her hesitate. She couldn't afford to wait for him to engage her. Eris wasn't naive enough to think she could take on a well-armed fighter head-on. She needed to get to the prize, and she needed to get there fast. Then, a sudden explosion in the distance caught her attention. A portion of the arena had been obliterated by an energy blast, and chaos ensued as debris and fighters alike were sent flying into the air. The prize, dollar money, was suspended in the center of the arena, high above the fray. It pulsed with energy, its brilliance a beacon to all those who wanted it. Eris locked eyes on it. She knew this was the moment. She could hear the scrambling of fighters as they turned toward the prize, all wanting the same thing. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to remain calm. She wasn't going to rush into the fray, blind to the dangers. She had seen enough to know that many of the fighters would kill each other for the prize, but there were others like her, watching, waiting, analyzing. Eris sprinted toward the arena's edge, using the debris and craters for cover. She could hear the screams of combatants as they engaged in close-quarter battles, each trying to reach the coveted prize first. She ducked low, avoiding blasts that whizzed by overhead. In the distance, she saw the massive Tarkin charging toward the prize, swinging its enormous fists at anyone who came near. The Ithronian was directing its drones toward the Tarkin, but the drones couldn't do much against the hulking machine that was the Tarkin's body. Eris crouched behind a rock formation, waiting for the right moment. She had no intention of engaging the Tarkin or the Ithronian directly. Her goal wasn't to fight, it was to outsmart them, to let them waste their energy fighting each other while she made her move. The Ithronian's drones fired at the Tarkin, but it was no use. The Tarkin swung its arms with destructive force, smashing the drones in one motion. The Ithronian barely managed to avoid a crushing blow from the Tarkin's fist, but it wasn't fast enough to escape the incoming counterattack. Eris saw the opening. Now. She moved like a whisper on the wind, her body darting from one piece of cover to another, her movements fluid and precise. She had learned to move quickly, to react before her enemies even realized she was there. As the Tarkin and Ithronian fought for dominance, Eris slipped behind them, unnoticed. The prize was within reach. But just as she was about to seize it, a blast of energy rang out from behind her. She turned, her heart skipping a beat, to find the mercenary standing in her path. His eyes were cold, calculating, and he held his weapon steady, aimed directly at her chest. "You're not going anywhere," he said, his voice low and filled with malice. Eris knew she had moments before the shot would be fired. She had one chance, one moment to turn the tide in her favor. Without thinking, Eris dove to the ground, rolling to the side, narrowly avoiding the blast. She quickly assessed her surroundings. The mercenary was faster, but she had the advantage of agility. She'd been in situations like this before, facing death, but never without a plan. The fight for the dollar money had truly begun. The arena was a chaos of violence, screams, and explosions as the fight for dollar money intensified. Eris had barely avoided the mercenary's blast, but she didn't have time to catch her breath. The mercenary was relentless, his aim steady, and his weapon charged for another strike. He knew how to take down his opponents quickly and efficiently, and Eris wasn't about to give him the satisfaction. She rolled to the side, her body moving instinctively, as another energy bolt sizzled past where she had just been. Her mind raced, she had no weapon, no armor, no way of matching the mercenary's firepower. But she had something he didn't: agility, speed, and a deep understanding of how to survive against impossible odds. Eris shot up from her crouch, sprinting toward a nearby rock formation that provided her with a momentary refuge. Her eyes darted around as she ran, looking for anything she could use, anything that could give her the edge over the mercenary. She needed to think fast. The prize was within reach, but she couldn't make a move without eliminating this threat first. The mercenary, realizing she was retreating, took pursuit, moving fast on her heels. His footsteps thundered behind her, echoing off the walls of the arena. Eris' heart pounded in her chest, but her training kicked in, she wasn't about to be hunted. She reached the rock formation and slid behind it, pressing her back against its jagged surface, holding her breath. The mercenary slowed his pace, wary of her sudden disappearance. He circled the rock, moving with the quiet precision of a hunter. Eris could hear his footsteps, closer, closer, and then silence. He was waiting for her to make a mistake, to show herself. But she wasn't going to give him that satisfaction. She needed to act, to do something unexpected, or he would trap her. She peered around the corner, watching as the mercenary took a few more steps forward. This was her moment. Without thinking, Eris reached for a rock fragment on the ground and hurled it behind him. The sound echoed through the arena, drawing the mercenary's attention. Just as he turned to investigate the noise, Eris burst from her hiding spot, sprinting full speed toward the center of the arena, where the glowing orb of dollar money floated above the chaos. She could see it clearly now, pulsing with energy, the object of everyone's desire. The prize was within her grasp, but she knew the mercenary wouldn't let her take it without a fight. As she approached, the mercenary's voice rang out from behind her. "You think you can win this? You're just another pawn in this game." Eris didn't turn back. She didn't need to hear his taunts. Her focus was fixed on the prize. The sound of his footsteps grew louder, but she kept her pace steady, calculating every move. Then, a loud roar split the air as the Tarkin, the massive cybernetic beast from earlier, crashed into the ground between her and the prize, shaking the arena with its sheer force. The ground trembled, and dust clouded the air. The Tarkin's monstrous form loomed before her, its mechanical arms swinging wildly, crushing everything in its path. Eris skidded to a stop just in time, narrowly avoiding the Tarkin's strike. She darted left, avoiding the creature's massive fist, but the mercenary wasn't far behind. The Tarkin's appearance had thrown a wrench into her plans, and now she was caught between two dangers. The Tarkin roared, its eyes glowing with artificial fury as it swung its other arm toward the mercenary, trying to eliminate the competition in its own way. But the mercenary was quick, dodging and firing back with his weapon. The energy blasts bounced harmlessly off the Tarkin's thick exoskeleton, but the distraction gave Eris a brief window of opportunity. The mercenary was too focused on the Tarkin to notice her, and she moved with lightning speed toward the prize. The dollar money orb was now only a few meters away, and she could almost feel its power pulsing in the air. She was so close, just a few more steps. But the mercenary had regained his focus, and he was charging at her, weapon aimed and ready to fire. This was it. There was no room for error. Eris made a split-second decision. As the mercenary raised his weapon, she dove to the side, rolling behind a pile of debris. The blast from his weapon narrowly missed her, but the force of the shot sent her tumbling. She scrambled to her feet, eyes locked on the prize. The Tarkin and the mercenary were now locked in a brutal fight, both trying to overpower the other. Eris, battered but determined, dashed once more toward the orb. She could hear the roar of the Tarkin's rage and the mercenary's shots behind her, but she didn't look back. Every fiber of her being screamed for her to reach the prize, to claim it and end this fight once and for all. With one final burst of speed, Eris reached the base of the glowing orb. She grabbed the energy strands that held it in place, her fingers shaking with anticipation. As she did, a shock wave of energy erupted from the orb, stunning her for a moment. But she held firm, refusing to let go. The moment she took hold of it, the arena seemed to shift. The noise of battle, the chaos, all faded into the background. All that mattered now was the feeling of the prize in her hands. She had done it. She had claimed the dollar money. The arena fell into a strange silence the moment Eris grasped the dollar money. The violent clashes, the screams, the roars of fury, all of it seemed to fade as she held the orb in her hands. It pulsed with a strange, electric energy, and its weight was both light and impossibly heavy at the same time. For a brief moment, the chaotic sounds of battle were replaced with a feeling of surreal calm, as if the entire galaxy had come to a halt to witness this singular moment. Eris stood there, chest heaving, eyes wide with disbelief. She had done it. She had claimed the prize that every participant had fought for, that everyone else had craved. But as she held the dollar money, she realized something far deeper than the thrill of victory. This wasn't just about the wealth, the power, or the status that came with the prize, it was about everything she had fought for, everything she had sacrificed to get here. But just as quickly as the calm had descended, the noise of the arena returned. The fighters who had been locked in battle paused for a moment, staring at Eris as she stood beneath the floating prize. The Tarkin, still locked in combat with the mercenary, looked toward her, its massive form shaking with frustration. The mercenary, who had been closing in on her, froze, his weapon lowered as he regarded her with a mix of respect and anger. "You actually did it," the mercenary muttered, his voice low. "You really thought you could take it from us?" Eris didn't respond. Her gaze remained fixed on the dollar money in her hands. She felt the weight of it now, not just physically, but in a much larger sense. The fight wasn't over. She hadn't won the galaxy's ultimate prize only to be left standing there unchallenged. The arena was full of fighters, many of whom would see her victory as their own defeat. And they wouldn't let her keep it without a fight. The Tarkin's growl rumbled through the air. It swung its massive arms toward Eris, but she was already moving. With all the speed and agility she had honed through years of surviving the toughest battles of her life, she dodged the incoming attack, rolling beneath the Tarkin's massive form and avoiding its grasp. But the mercenary was already advancing on her, his weapon charging again. "You can't escape me," he sneered, raising his gun. But Eris wasn't running anymore. She didn't need to. She had the dollar money. She had what everyone wanted, what they would die for. She wasn't going to let them take it from her. With a swift, fluid movement, Eris dove behind a pile of rubble, putting some distance between herself and the mercenary. The moment she landed, she quickly scanned the arena. The Tarkin was now engaged in battle with a new opponent, another contestant who had decided to take their chance at the prize. The mercenary, however, was still focused on her. "You're brave," the mercenary said, his voice filled with admiration tinged with hostility. "But you don't understand what you've done. No one leaves this arena with the prize without consequences. You've just signed your death warrant." Eris clenched her fists around the dollar money, her mind racing. She knew the mercenary was right. The moment she claimed the prize, she had made herself the target of every remaining fighter in the arena. No one would let her walk away. They'd all fight to the death to claim the dollar money for themselves. But Eris wasn't going to let them. Not without a fight. She took a deep breath, focusing all of her energy. The arena was still full of chaos, but she had one advantage: she wasn't trying to kill her opponents, just survive. She had learned how to outthink her enemies, to use their strength against them. And now, with the dollar money in her hands, she had everything she needed to win. As the mercenary advanced, she shifted, positioning herself carefully. The next move would be crucial. She couldn't just outrun him. She needed to make him underestimate her, make him think she was cornered. The mercenary took a few more steps forward, his weapon raised, a look of smug confidence on his face. "You're finished, kid." But just as he reached out to grab her, Eris moved faster than he could anticipate. She sidestepped him, grabbing a sharp piece of debris along the way. In one smooth motion, she spun and threw it with precision, hitting the mercenary in the side. He staggered back, startled by her unexpected move. The weapon in his hand fell to the ground. It wasn't a killing blow, but it was enough to leave him momentarily stunned. And in that moment, Eris made her move. She darted forward, grabbing the weapon and turning it against him. The mercenary, still recovering from the shock, could do nothing but watch as Eris aimed the weapon at him. "Not today," she said, her voice steady. The mercenary raised his hands in defeat, but Eris wasn't finished. She wasn't going to kill him, but she wasn't about to let him get in her way again. She quickly fired a warning shot into the ground beside him, making sure the message was clear. "Stay out of my way." With that, Eris turned toward the prize. The dollar money still floated in the center of the arena, its glow pulsing with anticipation. She wasn't just going to win. She was going to take control. But the battle wasn't over. Not yet. As she moved toward the prize, her mind was focused on what came next, the real fight, the fight for survival. The other contestants would stop at nothing to take the dollar money from her. But Eris wasn't backing down. She had come this far, and she wasn't going to lose now.